but this.
So did we unlock the elevator?
Yes.
You
No, we
okay?
got off.
Get trapped again,
Do
Steve?
you not know how it works?
That thing doesn't like
You
me.
got to get here earlier.
Before
I'm
5.
afraid to take the stairs because I've been locked in there too.
It's not fun to get stuck in an elevator. I've been there.
All right. Good evening, everybody. For the record, it's 5:15 PM on Thursday, April 11th, 2019. Time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. First up would be the pledge to our flag. I don't know when turns these. Councilmember Kulas?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call this evening, I guess we have Councilmember Huffaker and Councilmember Poyer. I know where Mike is. I don't sure where
He's not back yet.
Councilmember Huffaker is, but, so we have 5 in attendance today. First item will be the consent items, which includes this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting, and a resolution declaring certain property surplus to the needs of the city.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to approve this evening's agenda, vouchers, minutes from the previous meetings, and resolution number 2019-18, declaring certain personal property surplus to the needs of the city of Wenatchee and authorizing the Department of Public Works to dispose of the personal property identified herein.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting, and resolution 2019-18, declaring certain property surplus to the needs of the city. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Citizen comment. So we have a time on our agenda where members of the audience could address the city council on items that are either on today's agenda or not. I would ask that you give your name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes, and Tama Lama is in charge of the 3-minute counter, so if you hear some beeping, you'll know that it's Tama. Anybody wish to address the council? Yes, sir, come on up. Yeah, sit down. Name and address for the record. You want to make sure you're being recorded because the audios are on there.
Actually, the microphone works, right?
Okay,
So it was.
okay, all right, there it
That'll
is.
work, yep.
I am not good with microphones, by the way. So my name is John Smith. My address is 5825 Evergreen Drive, Kashmir, Washington. And I want to say, thank you for taking the time to consider these words. And I just want to know, everyone to know that you have our respect and our prayers. Again, as I said, my name is John Smith, and I am a citizen of Wenatchee Valley. I am a minister of the gospel and a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I have ministered in this community for about 3 years. Now, during this time, I have seen an organization establish and root itself within our community and actively promote the murder of unborn citizens of our Wenatchee Valley. And that organization is called Planned Parenthood. Now, as elected officials, representatives of the people of this community, you must do your duty to defend the smallest of citizens, the preborn. Every day that Planned Parenthood is allowed to operate, the civil liberties and the civil rights that are given by God himself that you, respected officials, are sworn to protect are taken away from our littlest of neighbors. Justice has been replaced with injustice, and care for the preborn looks like, according to Planned Parenthood, being callously ripped apart, burned alive, starved to death, and murdered, all for the sake of profit. I ask, would we allow any organization that supports and actively engages in, let's just say, the murder of 2-year-olds or the slaughter of minorities, and yet what we see Planned Parenthood doing is it is also murdering minorities and preborn children. Many of those citizens are basically being murdered within our own backyard, your very own constituents in your very own jurisdiction. As a minister, I urge in the name of Christ, of whom essentially all of us will have to give an account, please put a stop to the bloodshed. Put a stop to Planned Parenthood's agenda of shuttling little ones, again, your future constituents, to be executed by paid assassins. Please, we urge you, do your duty. As the Holy Scripture says, rescue those being taken away to death and hold back those stumbling into the slaughter. Council members, respected representatives, your neighbor's blood cries from the ground, and I appeal to your God-given conscience, especially to love your preborn neighbor and interpose on their behalf. Listen, no excuse will be made for any of us. No longer can we say we did not know, because God himself weighs the heart, and he will repay you for your work. As lesser magistrates ordained by God himself, we will be judged by our action or our inaction for the justice for the preborn. So, my fellow ministers of the gospel, fellow followers of Christ, I compel you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ to serve the Lord with fear, hate evil, love good, and establish justice within our community. Thank you, members.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to address it? Come on up, ma'am.
My name is Rose Nowak, and I reside at 619 Kittitas Street here in Wenatchee. And I want to give you an example of what a lower magistrate can do for a community. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, in the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, they were the #1 murder capital of the country. Operation Save America came to their community, and all of the abortion clinics were shut down for 2 weeks. After that, they left. But the spirit of murder, which had been pervasive in that community, was shut down as well. There were no murders in Baton Rouge for the rest of that year. And my point being, please do not let the murder of these babies continue, because that kind of spirit is also going to be leashed in the Wenatchee, city of Wenatchee, and also in our valley. So I beg of you, please do something to end this Holocaust.
Thanks, Rose. Anybody? Anybody else wish to address the council? Yes, sir. Can't tell if you're videoing or are you reading?
Yeah, it's videoing.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jake Eakin. I would like to express my gratitude for your attention today. My purpose for coming before you this day is to be a voice for the voiceless preborn children in this city. I believe it is my duty as a Christian to demand that you, as duly elected civil magistrates, enact justice for our preborn neighbors in this city immediately. You have the moral duty before God to interpose between these innocent preborn children and their attackers. This is your God-ordained duty to preserve justice and punish evil. You cannot hide behind the excuse that you must submit to Roe v. Wade. It is your duty to correct the oppression put upon us by this unruly court opinion. Roe v. Wade is not a law. It is a fundamentally flawed court opinion. The Supreme Court has not been given the power of legislation, and even if it did, no court has the authority to defy God's law and grant the right to legalize the murder of human beings made in the image of God. Your primary duty is to defend human innocent life. These preborn children have no voice, so you must speak for them. They cannot defend themselves, so you must come to their defense. You have the power and the duty to interpose on behalf of these preborn children. You have the power and the duty to establish justice for these children in this city immediately. I plead with you to make this city a sanctuary city for preborn children. You can do this by ignoring and defying the lawless court opinion of Roe v. Wade and abolishing abortion in this city immediately. The standard operating procedure has been that once the Supreme Court rules on a matter, that you simply obey. But you need to understand that this city council was never meant to be a mere implementation center through which the Supreme Court could unleash bloodshed on preborn children. Your interposition is absolutely critical to ending the atrocity of abortion. If they can defy the federal government for illegal immigration and make sanctuary cities for them, you can do this for innocent preborn children. We are demanding that this city council boldly say, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord and fight for every baby in the womb, even the least of these, the babies without heartbeats, the babies frozen in IVF prisons, babies who have feel no pain. We are demanding that you establish equal justice for all humans made in the sacred image of God from the moment of conception. We would call upon this city council to fear God rather than the Supreme Court. Rise up and do your duty and ignore Roe, establish justice, and make Wenatchee a sanctuary city for the preborn children. In Jesus' name, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to address the council?
I'm Dale Peterson, 1208 Summerhill Place, Wenatchee. I'm a retired physician at the Wenatchee Valley Clinic, and I've been a part of the pro-life group here since the early 80s. I became a born-again Christian when I was 40 years old in 1979, and it kind of changed my view on life in general in so many ways. But when I was at the clinic, we were doing abortions at that time, and I'd like to just briefly describe what happened at the clinic. We got involved in pro-life issues back then, and there were only 3 OB-gynecologists doing abortions. One retired, so that left 2. And his son, who was 9 years old, came home one day from school and asked his father this question: "Dad, are you killing babies in their mother's womb?" And he stopped doing them the next day, came down to the clinic, said, "I'm no longer doing this." He was done. After about 3 or 4 months, the last guy to do them, by his own admission, came and told the executive committee that he no longer wanted to do them. He did not want to be the only abortionist at the Wenatchee Valley Clinic facility. As a result, this sort of snowballed. There were 2 general practitioners doing them in East Wenatchee. They stopped doing them. They were doing up in Omak and the Okanagan, and they stopped doing them. It had a snowballing effect. Moses Lake never did do them. And so our North Central Washington became an abortion-free in 1993, and it haven't done any since. There are about 12 of us that signed a statement saying that if it ever came back, we would resign from the clinic. And it hasn't come back. And we would say that when Planned Parenthood moved into our facility, into our community down on Ferry Street, their design is to eventually do abortions there. In 3 years ago, in their year-end statement, they said it was their plan in the future to have every facility, even their affiliate facilities, do abortions. I think that's why Family Planning closed their offices in that area and Planned Parenthood moved in. They're referring young women down to Yakima to get their abortions, but their objective is to eventually do them here. So I thank you for your time, and I just would again assure you that we want to remain abortion-free. We owe it to our culture, our society. One thing I heard a woman speak.
You're right. We'll give you a minute or two.
In Seattle, at the Washington, or at UW Medical Center. She's a young woman, OB-gynecologist, that said she grew up in a very conservative household. She had Lutheran background and was very religious at the time. But when she started her training, she got desensitized to the issue of abortion. And when she started doing them, it still bothered her a little bit. But at that time, she had done 30,000 abortions, and she said, I really like it. That is evil personified. How can you like tearing those babies apart in their mother's womb? And that evil is in our culture. And so I just would, we need to put a stop to it, end abortion in this country. And
Thank you for your time.
And I appreciate your comments. I'm the chairman of the board of Confluence Health, and I know that we don't have any doctors performing abortions, nor have we for a long time at the Wenatchee Valley Medical Group or any of the Confluence facilities. So trying to hold our end of the bargain. All right, anybody else wish to address the council? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm David Abbott of 301 Cray Ike Court in Wenatchee. And I certainly agree with everything that my friends here have said and Pastor John Smith. I just wanted to briefly take off from what the other woman earlier, the second woman who spoke, on the effects of what she saw in Baton Rouge and the benefits of abortion being eliminated even for that short period of time. I am very frustrated and don't know what to do about the murders that happen in our country. We're all, I think, so frustrated and angry and wonder, why do people go around and kill people? And we can blame it on guns, and that certainly may be a role, but I think the culture of death that Planned Parenthood disseminates, that cheapens life so much. And then our children grow up and they know of abortion. They hear about it. In fact, it's taught. Planned Parenthood and others advocate for it in our schools. And perhaps not as much in Wenatchee Valley. But what logical basis can we give the children who get angry someday at their teachers or at their friends or at their parents or their siblings, and they know where there's a gun and they decide to take a life? What is the logic that we can counter to try and tell them, no, you should not kill other human beings? It's just ridiculously inconsistent. And I would strongly encourage you, appreciate what you've done, certainly, in keeping and maintaining the abortion-free status of our valley, but I would advocate and encourage you to try and remove this culture advocacy group of death, Planned Parenthood, from our valley, and make a strong step in expressing to our children and everyone how valuable human life is, and the taking of life is totally wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. All right, anybody else wish to address the council? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Folake Kellogg, and I became a citizen of the United States, I think 2 years ago, and I'm from Africa. And one of the things that I love about this country is the freedom that you come in here and you have life, and that's what America stands for. But right now in our culture, there's a saying that says the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And I know it's very easy to be silent when things like murder is happening, but I feel like I came here today to say to you guys, I think it's not those that are even doing the evil, it's the ones that have been silent that are going to stand also before God, because life matters. I'm from Africa, and I remember when war would happen, I always think that if they knew the value of life, if they knew how God created us to be equal, that they would not take for granted life. Then I come to America and I'm thinking, this is the country. But it's not just men and women. We're talking about babies. They never even get a chance to breathe. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "For I knew you before you were born in your mother's womb." So that means God knows these children, they're his. And if we are silent, or if we allow Planned Parenthood to keep standing in Wenatchee, blood is on our hand. Whether we say we don't do the killing, no, we allow them because their office is a stand that says to parents, I don't care your opinion. If your child walks in here, I can take them to abort a baby. And I just want to appeal to you today. Thank you first and foremost for even listening. But I want to say it's not enough to listen. You have to do something. You have to do something for the next generation. You have to do something for the ones that don't have a voice. It might not be popular, but you're not here because of popularity. You're here to do the right thing. Thank you.
Keith Flocka. All right, anybody else? See no other takers. We do have two presentations this evening. The first is regarding Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month. Who's got that proclamation?
I do.
Councilmember Harold, would you read that in the record, please?
I'd be honored. Whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, and to be free from verbal, sexual, emotional, or physical abuse. And whereas child maltreatment occurs when caregivers find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and lacking the ability to cope. And whereas child abuse and neglect not only harm children directly, but also increase the likelihood of future risky and criminal behavior, substance abuse, health problems, and whereas the cycle of child abuse and neglect can be broken by providing community support to families through programs such as Court-Appointed Special Advocate CASA program that looks out for the best interests of each child, and whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among social service agencies, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, criminal justice agencies, and the general community, and whereas the Chelan Douglas CASA program is one of 5 nonprofit court-appointed special advocate programs in the state of Washington and the only CASA program to provide a trained advocate to every child removed from their home due to abuse and neglect. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, hereby proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in the City of Wenatchee and call upon the citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in efforts to support families, prevent child abuse, and strengthen the communities in which we live. In witness whereof, I have caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 11th day of April 2019. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Councilmember Harold. Is there anybody from CASA here to, oh, come on up. There we are. They're in the back.
Ruth has some time.
Thank you.
Oh, first thing. Great, so I'll give that. You want to address the audience at all?
Thank you.
You sure? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I believe the next one's regarding Arbor Day. Who has that one?
I have that one.
Councilmember Markart.
Whereas Take Pride in America and the Greater Wenatchee Arbor Day Committee have distributed trees in north central Washington for 30 years, and whereas Arbor Day celebrations have provided over 180,000 trees to be planted in our area, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, cool our homes, clean the air we breathe, and provide food and shelter for birds, beneficial insects, and other wildlife, and whereas planting trees beautifies our community and provides a healthy, happy family activity, and whereas in conjunction with Arbor Day, trees will be distributed this April 13th in Wenatchee at Walla Walla Point Park, in Cashmere at Martin's Market, in Leavenworth at the National Fish Hatchery, in Entiat at the City Hall, and in Rondo at the Marketplace, and now therefore I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, hereby proclaim that April 13th, 2019 is Arbor Day in the City of Wenatchee, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our community, urban forestry and resources. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the City of Wenatchee to be fixed on this 11th day of April 2019, Frank Coons, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Margaret. Is Bonnie here? Where's Bonnie? Oh, there she is. I know Bonnie will take the mic. That won't be a problem for her.
Thank you.
How are you?
Just fine. It's good to
Nice to
see
see
you.
you. Oh, picture first.
Yeah, picture first here.
Okay, I'll give that to you.
I'll give this to you.
Oh, good.
It's a Doug fir.
You know, I was just thinking I was going to go pick up a tree because I already know where I'm going to plant it.
Well, good.
But now I've got
Okay.
one.
Now you have to watch out that it's not near power lines, okay?
I gotta think
Because
about this from there.
this tree is going to be more than 30 feet high.
Okay.
Okay, it's a Doug fir, and you know, it will live in your area gracefully,
Okay.
but as long as you don't interfere with the
I gotta
neighbors
ask
or the
my
power
code
lines.
enforcement people how close to the corner of the
There we go.
intersection
Yeah,
can
there we
it
go.
be?
You see, you have
Okay.
all those things you have to pay attention to.
Okay.
But we have wonderful trees this year.
Good.
Okay, and Doug fir, Engelmann spruce, pinyon pine, first time ever for that. Rocky Mountain maple, and then some wonderful shrubs that have berries and flowers and smell good and turn beautiful colors. Golden currant and sumac, but it's not a sumac that travels and gets nasty, and viburnum.
Okay.
Yeah. And so and that's what I'm doing tonight is packing.
So what time on Saturday?
They're from 10 to 3 in Wenatchee and from 10 to 1 in Eniat, Orondo, Kashmir, and in Leavenworth, it's been changed from the fish hatchery to the PUD building on Chumstuck.
So if I come
Okay.
down, can I get another tree or is that in violation of the tree?
No, you absolutely may. But we'll ask you for a donation for that one.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Well, thanks so much, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Uh-huh,
Thank
thank
you.
You just get a pot and put it right out here.
Yeah.
I already know where this is going. Trees on office building are struggling. Okay. So we actually have some action items tonight. So let's start with our cemetery code update. I'd call up Dave Erickson, but he's already there. David?
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Dave, and council. Good evening. Dave Erickson, Parks and Recreation Director for the city. So this evening, we're seeking approval of Ordinance 2019-15, which would update the cemetery code section of the Wenatchee Municipal Code. This has been in the works since last fall. We've gone through, and that's the end of my presentation.
Not everything went down.
We have experience in this.
So yeah, this has been in the works since last fall. And that included a review of 23 other municipal-owned cemeteries. We took a look at all the RCWs and the WACs that have been updated since the last time this was looked at. It's been reviewed by the Association of Washington Cities and the city attorney, as well as the cemetery staff. You guys had it in front of you on the February 19th work session, and then the Arts Rec and Park Commission has reviewed it at their November 2018 meeting, their January meeting of this year, and also their March meeting. Some of the highlights, just a summary since you guys have seen it before, but some of the highlights we've updated and made the terms more consistent with procedures also. Eliminated kind of the duplicative information, so stuff that was in there twice to shorten it down. Moved the fees that were in there, which are in several sections of the code, to the park fee schedule. So it's in with all the other park and rec fees like picnic shelters and rec programs. And then we beefed up the definitions and just cleaned up some of the grammar and the wording in there. We have a companion document, which I meant to bring in, but I left in my truck. It looks about like this, which is a strategic plan, which is in development right now for the cemetery, where hopefully we'll have that to you guys by the end of the year. It's kind of the hope. And with that, the staff and the Rec and Park Commission both recommend approval.
Does you have any questions for David? I know this is the second time we've seen it. So if you have any questions, fine. If not, I entertain a motion.
I make a motion for the city council to adopt ordinance number 2019-15, amending and restating chapter 9.04 Cemetery of the Wenatchee City Code and repealing all prior ordinances in conflict herewith.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Harold to adopt ordinance 2019-15, amending and restating chapter 904 of the Wenatchee Cemetery Code, or the Wenatchee City Code regarding the cemetery. Any discussion from the council members? David, I appreciate you doing this, as always. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Jeremy Hoover. Jeremy taught me a lot in finance today about UV rays and what was the other term?
HDPE.
HDPE, yep.
I try.
He
It was
was
an enlightening
plastic.
finance.
I can go into more detail
We
if
were
you ever
talking
want to
about why
talk.
this thing is sort of wearing out, and he said the UV rays and HDP, and I said, could he put that in English? He goes, the sun has an effect on the plastic.
It needs a roof.
Yeah, so, yeah. Got to put it in accounting terms. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to talk about the equalization basin liner. It is a piece of plastic that holds water that is currently wearing out relatively badly. As you can see in the picture, it's fraying in many places. The polyethylene is actually gone in several places to where you can actually see through to the ground. So this project is going to replace the liner, the existing one, with one that's a little bit thicker, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more life out of it. The one that was installed, the last one that was installed in 2005, and like I said, it's pretty well deteriorated. This basin is used to redirect flows that go to the treatment plant during high flow events, specifically when we get a whole bunch of rainwater coming into the system. It's used to temporarily cut off the peak of the flows until the rainwater passes and we can run things back through the plant. So because of this, we put the project out to design in 2016. We had added a couple of items to the design process, looking at the possibility of putting a parking structure or a cap or various items associated with it, and that became obvious pretty quick that was not going to be cost effective. So we put the project out to bid. We got one contractor that bid on the project, and the value came in at just a little over the engineer's estimate after tax, at a grand total of $227,840.54. So what I'm here to ask for today is for you to approve the budget amendment that was put before Finance Committee a couple of hours ago, as well as authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract with KRCI for the construction of the new equalization basin liner.
And we did talk a little bit, it's a slightly over budget, but not too much over budget, and some of it was our own doing as we were trying to figure out some of the other, you put a parking garage over it or not, and then some stuff with landscaping. So it all seemed reasonable, I think, to the Finance Committee.
So the last one we got 14 years out of, this one's thicker, so what's the guesstimated?
I'd love to say that it's 33% thicker, so we'll get 33% more life. It's probably not going to work out quite that way. Ballpark estimate.
Does it cost 33% more?
They always cost more.
I actually don't have the budget from what was spent on it 15 years ago, so I can't answer that with any security. It's probably significantly more expensive than what was done in 2005, because, I mean, just for inflation, 15 years, I mean, that's at least 50% more. But beyond that, I can't really give you any definitive answer.
And it's just totally not cost effective to try and cover it.
No, it worked out to be, I don't remember the cost per stall in terms of the parking structure, but it was exorbitant. Not to mention the fact that if you try to cover it, you have to do some ventilation because it becomes a hazardous area. If people are going to be going in there, the pipe, it's technically an explosive category 1, if I remember correctly. Suffice it to say, we don't want to enclose the basin and have gas buildup in there.
Thank you.
Jeremy, what does the new liner, does it have any more UV resistance than the old one?
Being polyethylene, it is still going to be subject to solar effects, long-term degradation. There's no getting around that. This is thicker. The one that was put in before was a 45 mil liner. This one's a 60, so it should get more life out of it. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we're doing as part of this project is we're building a ramp down into the EQ basin so that it will allow our crews to go in there and pick up the various flotsam that's accumulated after a big event much more safely than what currently happens right now.
Mm-hmm. I noticed somewhere in here it said that, that the ramp would allow ATV access. So that's okay to run an ATV around on that thing down there?
Well, they're not going to be driving the ATV on the liner itself. It's going to go down the ramp and basically stop there at the sump, and then they'll pick up the various items and haul it away that way. So it's an in and an out. There's no turning around.
Okay, I was wondering, you know, on,
that'd be-
on your lunchtime, you know, you were.
No.
Okay, all right, we're good.
Is there any risk that someone else might bring their ATV and run it around?
Well, anything's possible, but I don't think that would be the case. I mean, there's lots of other places in town that it would be more fun to go four-wheeling than the UP Basin.
Good.
Yeah, that's true. It's also fenced in. I apologize. I should have stated the obvious. Yes, there's a fence keeping people out of there.
Is redoing of the landscaping and that kind of thing, is that included in there, or is that going to be something?
The only thing that we're doing landscape-wise is that there's an old odor control misting system that we're going to be demoing because it never worked really well, and so we're getting rid of it as part of this project. We're not planning on putting up any kind of trees or any kind of shrubbery or anything like that with this project. It's strictly
Just leaving it the way it is?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Rob's crew's doing some work down there, though.
The treatment plant is doing a lot of cleanup down there. They're going to be hiring a seasonal here shortly, and they're going to put the seasonal on there to do much cleanup work.
Okay.
We want to really beautify that area as much as we can.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to approve the budget amendment presented to the Finance Committee and included as an exhibit to this report and award the contract for construction of the WWPT Equalization Basin Liner Replacement Project Number 1620 to KRCI LLC in the amount of $227,840.54 and further authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Markart to approve the budget amendment and to approve the contract for the wastewater plant treatment equalization basin liner replacement project 1620 to KRCI in the amount of $227,840.54 and authorize the mayor to sign construction documents. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now you think we should inspect this project?
That would be a good idea.
Okay.
There are various specific items that have to be done during the testing and construction phase of this project. As you can imagine, being plastic, various times a day, various solar events, it's going to expand and contract at different rates. So we have to be able to test it daily and several times throughout the course of the project. There's tearing that has to be done, tensile stress, et cetera, et cetera. The city does not specifically have that level of expertise in-house, not to mention the fact that we are going to be working on a big chip seal project citywide, and that's going to take up a good level of our resources. So we're not going to be able to dedicate staff to be down there watching the contractor do this and take the samples and stretch the material, et cetera. So we have spoken to HDR, who is the consultant that did the design work on the project, and they do have staff that is available to do this type of work. They've done the same type of thing for landfills, various liners, lagoons, et cetera, throughout the state. So we got a quote from them for a total of $31,600, which was part of the cost associated with the finance or the budget increase that was presented earlier. So I would like to recommend to the City Council to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant supplement agreement on behalf of the city with HDR for the construction inspection services for the wastewater treatment plant equalization basin liner replacement project 1620.
Your Honor, I make a motion for City Council to authorize the mayor to sign consultant supplemental agreement number 3 on behalf of the city with HDR Inc. for construction inspection services for the wastewater treatment plant equalization basin liner replacement project number 1620.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Esparza, to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant supplement agreement number 3 on behalf of the city with HDR Inc. for inspection services for our basin liner replacement project number 1620. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeremy. And you're up again regarding the Skyline Drive.
Yes. So the Skyline Reservoir is up at the far end of Red Apple. It is a 1 million gallon reservoir that was installed back in the 50s. The transmission line that goes up to the reservoir is a 14-inch steel main that is in questionable condition. The project was approved for design in the beginning of 2017.
The scope of that project was to replace the 14-inch steel line with a new 16-inch line, basically from the intersection of Skyline and Appleland up to the tank. Since that project has been going on, there is a proposed development a little bit further up Skyline that will need to have both a sewer and a storm drain outfall for it. We currently do not have a storm sewer or a sanitary sewer in this particular segment of Skyline. The closest one is down at Appleland. And we're proposing to have the consultant that was doing the work for the design of the water line include in their scope of work design of the new sanitary sewer and storm drain improvements. So that's where this additional scope and fee increase for BHC consultants is coming from. Approximately $97,000 for both consultants' design time and city staff efforts associated with managing the project and whatnot. So I'm here to recommend to the City Council to approve the budget amendment presented to Finance earlier today, and further request the City Council to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant supplement agreement number 3 on behalf of the city with BHC Consultants, LLC, for additional sanitary and storm sewer design services with the Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement Project number 1704.
So a question that, just now looking at the pictures, so if we put in this sewer line and that 18-lot subdivision ultimately gets approved, then they'll pay the hookup fees and all the standard fees, and we'll recoup part of our cost to do this over time as people hook up.
We're looking at a couple of things as well. They would potentially, the proposed outfall that they had originally given at the cul-de-sac of Anton would have required them to build some, obviously some infrastructure to get down to that point. So we're looking at potentially a cost reimbursement agreement between the two of us. We'd build some of the line, they'd build some of the line. It's yet to be worked out. This is just completely proposed. But yes, there will be connection fees for the subdivision as that comes online.
Yet other than the connection fees.
I'm sorry?
Other than those connection fees that anyone else pays, the
There-
developer is not, you're talking to them, but there's no requirement that they materially participate financially in extending service to their development.
I don't remember the density of the development off the top of my head, but they're going to want sanitary sewer services. They're not going to want to try to put everybody on septic systems. So they're going to need an outfall one way or the other, whether it went down to Anton, which is not in the best interest of the utility, or coming down Skyline, which is where we prefer that outlet to go. Are they going to be participating in this specific extension? Probably not, but they are going to have to, at a bare minimum, get it down to Anton plus another 300 feet or so. So it's probably going to be about a wash in terms of what they would have had to build versus what they will have to build, if that makes sense.
Because they could go the other way.
They can't take it north. I don't think they can physically make it north.
What we're trying to do is we've got a need. Hold it down.
Be careful, you'll turn off the lights with that thing.
We have a need in Skyline Drive for all 3 of the utilities to be extended. And so the developer is obligated to build for us sewer and storm drainage. And the water service, though, is actually provided by the PUD up there. So our water work is just for our reservoir work there. But as an example, if Black Rock Development had been obligated to build, say, $500,000 worth of infrastructure, we're going to go back to them, look at what their obligation was, and look how we can partner with them on this project. They still would be obligated to build the equivalent of the infrastructure, but we're trying to partner. There's less impact to Skyline Drive, and we're getting an overall product that serves not only them, but the other neighbors along Skyline Drive. And last, that it's set up that when we do future street improvements on Skyline Drive, that those will be in place for us when we do the street improvements. So it's a long answer to what we're trying to orchestrate out there.
Jeremy, the water line, part of the project, and then we're talking about storm and sewer, are those going to be concurrent, or are we talking about tearing the road up and then tearing it up again and again?
No. It'll all be done at the same time.
Okay.
Based on the amount of infrastructure that's already in there, PUD's got 2 water lines. There's power, there's fiber, there's existing water, there's going to be storm, there's going to be sanitary. We're going to basically shut off that section of Skyline. There's not really going to be much option about that. We'll still maintain access to the residents, but in terms of through traffic coming up from Red Apple trying to get all the way up to Cherry, we're going to have to shut that off. It's just not feasible to be able to try to build all of this and keep lanes open. Plus, there's only half a dozen residents or so that are going to be impacted in terms of access, but they will be able to get in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, we did talk a little bit about, this isn't going to happen this year, probably next year because of initial design work, but there was some talk about, do you allow traffic to go through there and add 2 months to the project and a bunch of money, or do you just shut down Skyline Drive for 6 weeks and let them just go at it? And I think the consensus of the Public Works Committee at that point was just shut her down for 6 weeks and let them knock it out. So I think that was sort of the discussion, assuming that's kind of how we're moving forward.
Correct. That's the idea.
Still getting residents in.
Yes, residents can get in and out, but in terms of just general traffic, you'll have to go down Cherry and cut across.
I also wanted to add that the sewer main extension that we're talking about is in your sewer comp plan. And so it's part of our rate structure that's paying for this main now. So it's not a new project that we thought of with here kind of late in the game. It's sort of really more of an opportunity that we really should be trying to do all the utilities in the road at the same time. So
good. Thank you.
Yeah, again, this is just for additional design work at this point, so. All right, I'd entertain a motion if we had one.
Well, Your Honor, I would make a motion for the City Council to approve the budget amendment presented at the Finance Committee, and that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign Consultant Supplemental Agreement Number 3 on behalf of the city with BHC Consultants, LLC, for additional sanitary and storm sewer design services with the Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement, project number 1704.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Markart to approve the budget amendment and authorize the mayor to sign Consultant Supplement Agreement Number 3 on behalf of the city with BHC Consultants, LLC, for additional sanitary storm sewer design services with the Skyline Reservoir Transmission Line Replacement Project number 1704. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate you being here. Extension number 47 with Mr. Widener. Steve?
Sidetracked in front of that new computer.
Yeah, lights. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve King, Economic Development Director. This request is an extension for the purchase and sale agreement for the Mission Kittitas parking lot with Widener Apartment Homes. We've had a number of these extensions, and you may ask, why are we keep having these extensions? It's not because we have any issues with our negotiation. They're just doing their due diligence. For example, before the development agreement comes before the council, they're doing their traffic studies for the SEPA checklist, and they're doing their utility plans and mapping things out. So it's all good due diligence, and hindsight, I would have asked for like a 9-month extension the very first time. So it's part of the process.
So why just to the end of June, and why not a little bit longer? Is that assuming that the council gets one shot at the development agreement and we'll approve it then? And what happens if we don't? We continue the hearing.
Right, so there'll be two actions before the council when it comes up, and that'll be the purchase and sale agreement, which will have a lot of the financial transactions associated with the partnership, and then there'll be the development agreement that gets more at the codes and the development. So so you will have both of those in front of you at that time. If the purchase and sale agreement will be contingent on the development agreement, so you'd be able to decide to extend it at that time if necessary. So
Steve, when would you anticipate bringing the development agreement so they
know
the time you have?
yeah, they said probably in May, one of the May meetings.
So is this something that's going to show up in our mailbox on a Monday and be expected to take action on Thursday?
Nope.
Or are we going to be able to take a look at it?
Yeah, it'll have plenty of,
workshop
go through the Finance Committee and Public Works Committee, and you guys can all look at that, plenty of time.
Yeah, so I guess the preference for me is for you guys to, the Finance Committee will obviously see it the week prior, the Public Works Committee would see it the week prior, but we do have a couple council members that are on neither committee. So would you like it to go to committee and here? So just tell us how you want it done. I'll get it in front of all the groups that want to see it.
Well, I'd like to know what's the content of it and what are the agreements?
Just get it emailed to us at the same time committees are going to see it.
Okay,
That's fine.
that works.
Because we've made some policy positions about general development anyway, and I don't want to see those that we've discussed publicly modified in the development agreement without a full discussion of it.
Okay. So I think when we get what we think the final is, just email it to all the council members, so they'll have it, and then we'll talk about it at the Finance Committee shortly after Public Works Committee, and then have full debate here.
Okay.
And Steve, just 2 points of clarification.
Sure.
Currently, the property is still being used as it has been as a parking lot, so nothing has changed there.
Mm-hmm.
And have we had any other interested parties in the property at all?
I've got one party that was interested in it for a commercial, not a residential development.
Yeah, and I'll just make it clear, Keith, if we went out and put a sign on it today, you might get more money than we're selling it to Mr. Widener for. I'll be clear about that. I think if you just decided that this was all about money and you didn't care what went there, I would not be surprised if we went put a for sale sign on it today, that we would get more than the $500,000 that Mr. Widener's paying for it. If you want downtown housing and you think that's important to your downtown business owners and all the little restaurants and bars and pybus and all that, then I think it's imperative for us to say, okay, is this the best use and the best price and the deal that makes sense for the city, and look at it all as once. Okay, I would say the same thing about the Hilton property, quite frankly. We could have sold that for more money to other people. So hopefully it's more than just price. Hopefully it's a deal that works for everybody. And again, the devil's in the details, like Councilmember Kulas wants to be able to see it. And I've had just some overall sort of overarching sort of advice to the staff, and I'll see it the first time you guys see it. But if it's the desire of the council to get the most money out of it, then you need to tell us and we'll do something different.
Well, I think also in the evaluation, and which we have brought all along in this process, is looking at the other benefits too. And so, for example, when we looked at the Hilton project, we not only looked at the property itself, but the benefit that it brought to the district as well as the associated tax revenues. The significant piece of this also is our overall assessed value in South Wenatchee is a great concern to the city and to the region in terms of what we're doing. And this project brings significant impact that helps elevate the value for the remainder of South Wenatchee, which we think it's a game changer. And so that's part of what we weigh in terms of the urban environment and creating the environment that we desire as a city. So.
But ultimately, it's your guys' decision, and my goal when we started this was to bring you a deal, and then for you guys to stop and say, is this a deal that's acceptable to the council or not? So we will, assuming we get the extension, we will continue to work on a deal and bring it to you and let you guys debate it in public and decide if it's something that's in the best interest of the city or not. Meanwhile, we need an extension.
Are you sure June's adequate? Do you want another month to it, or, well, actually, he's already signed it for June.
Let's stick with June. I want to keep a little pressure on them.
Never mind.
Yeah.
I'd like
Your
to
Honor?
make, go ahead.
You sure? Your Honor, I move for City Council to authorize the mayor to sign a Fifth Amendment to the real estate purchase and sale agreement with Widener Apartment Homes for the Mission and Kittitas parking lot, extending the due diligence period to June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Bailey. To authorize the mayor to sign the Fifth Amendment to the real estate purchase and sale agreement with Widener Apartment Homes for the Mission and Kittitas parking lot, extending the due diligence period till June 30th of 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Steve. Mayor's report. I have a sinus infection. I don't feel very good, and I'm tired. All right? I think we've had some really interesting meetings. I know Councilmember Kulas attended, I saw it in the newspaper, the college
Yes.
sub-area plan. And then we
Councilman
followed
Marco
up with the
did.
NEPA meeting on last night. So you want to give a little recap on the college one?
Sure. The lights went out just like
Yes.
just like this, and no, well attended by college staff and neighbors. My table had some pretty good discussion of issues related to the college, in particular that it's it goes without saying it's an extremely important institution in our community, and still the college is sensitive to its impact on neighboring properties, is also somewhat reliant on future development of those neighboring properties into uses that might be somewhat supportive to them. I thought it was really nice that the Sage Hills Church and the college have been able to work out arrangements whereby the upper parking lot of Sage Hills Church is available for student parking. And when they begin the reconstruction of Wells Hall, assuming that their permits are approved, which goes to bid this summer, did they not say?
Yeah.
That they've worked out an arrangement with Sage Hills Church that they will be able to use portions of the church building for classes in that building because they lose Wells Hall for the reconstruction. I kind of advocated to make sure that the college continued to develop and not move any of its programs to other satellite locations in the community, that it's important for the students to be on a central campus and that they all have equal access to the other course offerings and buildings there. So they have a fair amount of redevelopment that they want to do besides Wells Hall, the whole IA, the whole industrial arts complex and
That's
ag
the next
stuff
one, yeah.
will be next. And those are the buildings along 9th Street there. It's also interesting to note for colleges what the state assists in funding and what they don't. And so kind of those accessory services like housing and the athletic facilities are not state funded. Those are done either by the students in the case of the rec center, or they're done by members of the public through fundraising for the softball field and the baseball fields and the soccer fields and that. So I thought it was really well attended and good discussions. One of the neighbors at my table, President Jim Richardson was sitting with us, and she used to work at the college, and so she wants to know how students feel about the stuff. So he just invited her, well, come on over and get on campus and walk around and talk to students. Yeah. So I think there's a good relationship in the neighborhood. The coffee shop business across the street is going great. The president did mention that the students would like to see more stuff like that on campus, like say at the Union Building. So, yeah. Good. And I think there was a general feeling that it was probably not appropriate to remain in a residential zoning district, that it have its own master plan that's given to the city, and so that they have freedom to work within that context for their construction. I didn't know if you had anything.
No, that very well attended. We had a gentleman from the neighborhood that just loves the college. Neighbors really like it. They go to attend services. They'd like to be able to use the rec center, but they like it.
Well, maybe in time the college will figure out how to do essentially memberships. Yeah. One of the other things that we're going to point out, the college and the students and the neighbors really liked the boulevards that we had there. Good. And commented just at the point that the trees reached that level where you could see underneath them. That they got mowed down. So try again, right? Yeah.
And some of our little transportation dollars we help get, it's going to help with Elliott sort of get a little trail through there too by the coffee shop all the way over to Orchard, and
there's a lot of interest,
which will help with pedestrian movements and that sort of thing. So, and then the NEPA meeting, we must have had 200 people last night. I'm guessing.
According to the radio, it was only 50.
No.
There's about 90 chairs and they were all full. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe 100. Okay, yeah. Good. So just a quick recap, Steve, on how that went?
Yeah, very good. You know, like any of those.
Get the microphone, come on.
Remember, hold on it for 5 seconds.
And the lights will go out.
All right. No, I thought it went pretty well. Councilmember Huffaker was there, and Lyle, you were there. You know, there's always tough questions in those meetings, and there should be. If there's not tough questions, something's wrong. So overall, I think we got the point across. We met the objectives of the meeting, which was make sure people understand what the Confluence Parkway is, ask them to spread the word, tell their neighbors, make sure we get it well known, and then we spent some time going through what the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act process means. And overall, I think that the audience was pretty well engaged, and you know, it's a tough project, but there's good support and there's good questions. So.
I've never been to a public meeting that could have been contentious and there was applause at the end of the presentation.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Keith says because it was over. Yeah, no. No. Again, I thought it was great to have that many people there. And I did last week. I'm on a little working group to try to help figure out what to do with our airport, which is struggling both financially and with a government model. So I was at a 3-hour meeting last Wednesday, and the consensus from the group, which included Mayor Lacey and some other community members and other elected officials, was really to combine the 2 ports into one and try to have one port, the port of Chelan and Douglas County, so we quit having these sort of territorial fights and who's leasing what building, and that goes to the airport. So we basically said, you know, two things came out of it: combine the ports, and then the consensus was they need more money for the airport, so that to vote on a 0.1% sales tax increase to countywide to go strictly to the airport. And that the 2 ports then could actually back off of their property tax take, not by the full amount, but by enough, and get some money for the airport for all of its capital improvements that it needs. And so the 2 ports are going to look at that, and we're going to meet, I think, in another month or so and sort of revisit. But that was, I think, the unanimous consensus of the group was sort of following the Our Valley, Our Future approach of how do you get one community, and you know, trying to fight to find money for the airport is going to be difficult. And they're not money makers, and they're very capital intensive, yet they're huge economic development tools. Could you imagine our city without one? And so that is sort of the consensus of the group. We'll sort of see where it goes. Very spirited dialogue, but I just want to report that to you. And I haven't seen anything in the newspaper. The media was there that day, but anyhow, the 2 ports are going to go back and see if they can figure out a way to make that work. We're watching Olympia. Really hard to sort of see what's going on. We're not having, our housing bill has sort of died. We had one of the sides, I think the House, but not the Senate, but in the transportation bill, we have $1 million for NEPA that is now not there. So we're sort of going to have to pull a few rabbits out of our hat at the end of the day to see what specific projects we've asked for. Sounds like probably the Douglas County sewer bill is going to probably make it sounds like. So we're still working on all that stuff. I don't know whether they're going to get out of there at the end of April or not, but we're still watching it pretty closely. Allison, what did I miss?
You got everything I noted, and I sent you all an update today of all the activity. Trying to keep you more updated.
I will say this, just because we talked about it at the Public Works Committee this week. You know, we've been sort of starting the design process for a parking garage that would sit between Gold's Gym and Biosports, for lack of a better spot. And with the potential sale of everything that is owned by now Lineage or Columbia Coal Store, the ability to have the rail spur sort of removed if it's owned by private property has caused the Public Works Committee, and I think Steve and Rob and a few others, to say, maybe we ought to take a step back a little bit and see if something happens up there where the rail spur goes away. All of a sudden we can get maybe 70 or 80 parking stalls for $1 million and be real close, and not build the $3.5 million parking garage that's based on our parking standards would only house 120 cars or something. So we've sort of taken a pause on that. I think you guys need to know that we have, just to sort of see what happens with that, and is there a sort of a different approach that might make some sense. So I listened to comments, but it was sort of the unanimous vote of the Public Works Committee to take a step back. And I know Steve sent an email to Sellon's folks and said, hey, just put a hold on it for a minute while we sort of think
It
about it.
only makes sense since that opportunity came up.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
didn't want you to think that we're still plowing ahead. I
No.
think we need to stop and just sort of see. And so I just wanted you guys to know that we have sort of pulled the reins back on that. And then, have you talked to the PIBUS folks yet? Okay, now, if you don't, I'll get a hold of Steve. And I just think we need to sort of know how that kind of falls out. There might be an opportunity there for us to do something that's even better than what we talked about and for less money. All right, anything else, team? Next week, what are we doing?
So next week we have a TPA. It is Flywheel Conference on Thursday, so we'll keep your work session short, just 2 topics, so
Okay.
probably 45 minutes.
It is a what on Thursday?
Flywheel.
Flywheel Conference.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, plus Girls Night Out, so. Downtown. It'll be a busy day downtown, and we're thankful to our Public Works Department for putting off a concrete pouring project they were going to do on Wenatchee Avenue on Thursday during all that activity.
All right.
Saturday is the recycling event.
Yes.
Yeah, Saturday's recycling event. Saturday is,
45 South Wenatchee Avenue, 9 to 3.
Be there, be square.
Visit the website to see what you can bring.
yes. Yesterday was Anna's birthday. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
We're adjourned.